Employees of big chains. What's a secret customers aren't supposed to know? Story 1. If you overdraft your account, ask for a refund. The system checks prior overdraft fees, if any, and will usually refund if it's your first time or has been a long time since your last overdraft. Answer: 23 years ago, I had an overdraft on my account from running too close while changing jobs and them running debits before credits. 23 years of no overdrafts later, I had an issue where I transferred funds via mobile app on a 3-day weekend. It went through, and then later it didn't go through until after the weekend, overdrafting and stacking fees. The bank manager said he would look into it. I had to call him back days later. The bank manager offered me half of my money back after some calm, rational talking. No. The bank manager told me about my history of overdrafts and that it was the best he could do. That's when I started digging. Most people don't have my technical background, but I found the log for the mobile app actions on their system, which is separate from their normal account history. I then had to walk into his branch, had him come out to the public use PC for account use in the lobby. I swear he was looking if he had to call the cops, but I walked him through with other bank witnesses how on their site to see this mobile log and then showed the lines. It was an error on their side. I did get all my money back, but the system had me marked as an overdrafting member from an event 23 years ago. Wow. Talk about holding a grudge. 23 years, and the bank system still had you marked as an overdraft risk? That's some next-level digital baggage. Honestly, this just goes to show that sometimes you have to become your own IT detective. If you've got the receipts, or in this case the mobile app logs, don't be afraid to walk them through it step by step. Just maybe warn the manager before you make him think he's about to be hacked live in the lobby. Story 2. Most rules are flexible if you are polite. Staff usually want to help. Rudeness is what shuts doors fast. Answer: I've worked at a lot of companies where it was really my discretion for discounts, coupons, or there simply wasn't any loss prevention for me to care about coming back to haunt me. If you were kind to me, or even more, if you were kind to people around you, boom, discount, coupon. Oh, you're short a couple bucks? Not anymore. I have sales numbers I'm supposed to meet and all those other fun KPIs higher management is yelling at me about. But I don't give a fudge about my CEOs and their $1 million bonus. I care about the person in front of me and making their day a little bit brighter, because so often it keeps moving forward from there. Story 3. The ice cream machine isn't broken. It's down for cleaning because it is a stupid design that has to be supervised at all steps of the process and takes a long time instead of being able to simply be started cleaning by the night shift and finished by the morning shift. Answer: when I was at one chain, they did drain it, clean it every night at close. However, the machine could be down for days, weeks if one single grommet got lost or went down the drain. There was probably 8 for the parts we took out and cleaned, some as small as 2 mm. If we lost one, it took forever to get a replacement, and the machine was completely unusable without it. Story 4. It'll help you out and put in a little bit more work if you're nice to me. If you're rude, then you're getting the bare minimum. Answer: so true. Years ago, I got a call that my best friend was dying in a hospital in Phoenix. My ex-wife and I rushed to see him before he passed. On the way home, the airport was super busy and flights were overbooked. The attendant at the gate was desperately trying to find some people to take later flights for vouchers. Everyone was super pissy at the poor lady. My ex and I were in a somber mood and in no rush home. We were polite to the attendant, and she was super appreciative. We got the vouchers, and 10 minutes later, she sought us out and told us she'll do her best to get us on our original flight. She did, and let us keep the vouchers. Story 5. Check the dates on your groceries before you buy them. In a perfect world, we were supposed to rotate groceries. Pull the current ones out, put the new ones at the back, and put the old ones back on the shelf in the front. We also were meant to do inventory twice a year, where we would catch broken and expired items. In reality, we had less than 60 seconds a box to haul the box onto the cart, open it, stock the items, flatten the cardboard, and store the cardboard on the cart. Items almost never got rotated. And in the years I'd worked at the grocery store, we'd skipped inventory a few times. Our store manager disliked it because it made the shelves look empty, so it was never too surprising to see an item on the shelf already expired. Answer: yes. Anywhere where there is expiration dates, check them. So many places are short-staffed right now, and in an ideal world, we'd have the coverage at my work, a big pet food store, where someone can just take the whole day and check all of the out-of-dates. But since he has to do them so quickly with a huge list of other tasks right behind it, humans miss things sometimes. If you're a customer and you find an out-of-date product, please bring it to an associate's attention so we can get it off the floor immediately. We do care. We are just human. We do try to work together and check dates while we stock things so that responsibility doesn't just fall on one person. But yeah, sometimes things slip through the cracks. Personally, I'll try and throw a coupon on the order of anyone who brings me an expired item, as long as they're nice about it. Story 6. Every employee at any Marriott branch has the power to comp up to a certain amount per guest without manager permission. When I was working at the St. Regis a decade ago, I could comp $500 per guest per day without approval. I comped shoot all the time for nice people. Free champagne, free spa services, free anniversary dinners. I also claimed I didn't have that power for assholes that demanded free shoot. Story 7. The code for the paper coupons you get in the mail for fast food places can be used many times if you just use the code on the app to order. If you go to a certain place often, you can take a pic of the paper to help remember it. The surveys on fast food receipts just give you a code with a certain code to it. For example, Carl's Jr. has codes that are CJXXX, where the X's are random numbers. Once you figure out the code for that restaurant, you can just not do the survey and write down random numbers after the CJ on your receipts. Nobody ever checks and they don't even type it into the computer. Free burgers. Answer: this is how I'd feed myself when I was poor and in my early 20s. I had several food places around I knew the codes to from friends working in fast food before. A lot of times it's 4 numbers, but the middle 2 add up to 7 or some random rule. After a while, I started feeling bad. I wasn't doing the surveys, so I actually started doing them in an effort to get a raise or at least good standing to the people giving me free food when I was hungry, lol. Story 8. I'm not sure if they still do this, but when I worked for Geek Squad, they would remotely connect an IT worker from India to fix software issues on computers. You are paying hundreds of dollars for someone making a pittance. Worse, I doubt they have the same privacy laws you would expect from your home country. Answer: I worked for Geek Squad way back when XP was still the main OS. Many years before they started this remote practice. They called it Agent Johnny Utah, or AJU, and it was a great job. We weren't really expected to be salespeople, but instead actually fix a very wide spectrum of computer issues. I quit shortly after AJU showed up and wasn't surprised to hear that Geek Squad's quality of service went down the drain. Story 9. The markup on our seasonal items are huge. That's why Christmas went 40 off just days after we first started putting it out months ago. Even now at 60, we make a profit. It's priced to go on sale right away. Story 10. I was once traveling on Amtrak, and although I've forgotten the reason, the train sat for over 5 hours in one spot at one point. My friends who were alcoholics and pissed they had to wait so long for the train instead of being home drinking bitched up a storm about it. The next day, to shut them up, I called customer service, extremely apologetic to have to make the call. I barely got into the second sentence of explaining what had happened, and the CSR offered my next trip to be comped. But it got even better. I got a small private room with all meals included. To say I was stunned and dazed when I got off the phone is an understatement. My mama instilled in me to always be polite. Being polite, courteous, and a bit of humor goes a long way. Answer: similarly, on Amtrak, I was stuck on a powered-down train that had only just left the station. The woman who was running the cafe car was getting bombarded by angry passengers who wanted to buy booze, but couldn't because, no power. I mean, I wanted some wine too, but clearly that poor woman had no control over the situation. She kept trying to get everyone to go back to their seats because they were jostling in a line that had no open cafe, and no one budged BC. They didn't want to lose their place in line. She was not happy. She happened to walk by my table, and I noticed that she had a lanyard with TARDISes on it, so I asked who her favorite doctor was. We bonded a bit over Tennant versus Smith versus Eccleston. And then when the train finally started up again over an hour later, she personally escorted me to the front of the line. You had better believe that I gave her a giant tip too. Story 11. That the shelves and the food item placement in a grocery store is meticulously designed to make you stay there as long as possible and buy things as much as possible. Answer: there's a reason Safeway, Walmart, etc. share mostly similar floor plan designs and consistent product lines, even if they're not the most profitable, like Boar's Head, between branches. The design might induce people to buy more, but mostly people are more comfortable going to a store without having to wander around, and they like to buy familiarity. I know the Boar's Head bacon from the Safeway in Nevada is going to be middle of the road, but I also know what I'm getting, and it's the same thing in the same place in the store that I'll get in Fresno or Sacramento or San Jose, etc. The real secret is that once they get used to a particular store's brand of organization, customers are much more likely to return to that brand even if it's 100 miles from their home, because they know where to find products and they know what they're getting. Brand loyalty like that is extremely valuable. Story 12. Low on colors are basically a way to make you spend money on new cartridge. Cartridges have an expiry date. No matter how much ink it still has, it will still prompt to replace when the time is up. Story 13. I work front desk at a large hotel chain. A lot of the time, at least at our chain, the room rates we offer to a walk-in guest is completely up to us, more so if we have a ton of rooms open. If the computer gives us a rate of, let's say, 170, I could just take 50 off and make it 120 if the person is being nice to me. In my manager's eyes, I guess, it's better than the room not being sold at all. Also, with room upgrades, I literally will give them out for free to many people, as long as we have them available. If I notice a nice couple come in who are polite and make conversation, you'd be surprised at how many people come in, barely say a word, and are rude. I will upgrade them to the best room we have. Politeness and a small tip sometimes can go such a long way. Answer: if I notice a nice couple come in who are polite and make conversation, you'd be surprised at how many people come in, barely say a word, and are rude. I try to be polite but unimposing, so I intentionally avoid yapping when the person at the front desk is busy working on the computer or just doesn't want to make small talk. Most of the time, I just smile, say hello, and ask how they're doing. If they respond with something that lets me continue the conversation, I'll chat, but if not, then I'll just shut up and let them work. Is this okay, or should I adjust how I handle these interactions? Story 14. If you want to be a male body part head, to me, just remember I have 8 hours of dealing with other male body part heads to go. There's a good chance you aren't the worst person I'm going to have to deal with. Just be nice, and we'll help you. Also, the customer is usually wrong. Story 15. One of the biggest pizza chains in restaurant history has been selling frozen pizza as freshly made and freshly baked pie for over 35 years. The dough and ingredients all come in separately as flash frozen items from Mexican farms and factories. They're kept in deep freeze storage for up to 10 to 15 years. The dough is literally frozen plate-like saucers that look like this, that are placed in heavily oiled pans, sprayed with aerosol spray oil until dripping, and put in the cooler to thaw out overnight before being topped and baked. This method was introduced in the mid-1980s when the independent company was bought by PepsiCo and cost-cutting measures became the rule, profitability over quality. That extends to supply inventory controls. Managers and franchise owners are prohibited from buying or acquiring any supply item from anywhere but the exclusive supply warehouse. Penalty for doing so is docked pay and termination. Half the time, ordering soap for dishwashing, hand soap, paper towels, or cleaning supplies returns an out-of-stock code, meaning a huge quantity of locations are simply rinsing things in plain water, including dirty hands that took garbage to the dumpster, then prep raw ingredients and cut cooked pizza with unsoaped, rinsed-off, slimy hands. Their current ranking is barely in the top 10 anymore, even if brand recognition is in the top 5. Pizza Hut edit. This is specific to U.S. locations. Most international PH restaurants use fresh ingredients, not flash frozen from a deep freezer. Answer: worked here as an engineering student in college. Had the interesting experience of understanding a lot of the math and business as opposed to my coworkers. Never had issues with things being out of stock, but my manager got bonuses based on sales, efficiency, etc. Certain items, like wings, didn't affect bonuses as much because we got wings in huge bags and Q-ted out 6, 8, etc. per bag. Corp knew this and thus assumed a higher error rate. I could eat all the wing I wanted for free, but pizza was expected to pay full price for, despite a 50 off meal deal for employees. Other cost savings things my manager did: hired excessive number of drivers, which were paid $7.25 when in the store, and 3-something G when driving, compared to cooks paid 9-something. Drivers did everything: prep, cleaning, stocking, etc. I'm sure you can figure out why. The 6 other drivers I had to split deliveries with that showed up high as few K every day, clueless. Easiest, chillest job I ever had, but Fouquet if it wasn't BS. Manager regularly asked drivers to drive him home, trading hours because he didn't have a car. Made over 125K years in so bonuses and 100 disability from the military. Guy was loaded but cheap AF. 100 a millionaire by now. Kinda a pos though. Story 16. That buying off-brand items is a lot cheaper, and a majority of the time the off-brand items are often made with the same ingredients and sometimes even in the same factory as the name brand. Answer: For work, I took a tour of a bean factory a few years ago. This company made their own brand of various canned beans, along with the private label beans for Walmart and Kroger. When I asked them the difference, they said that they tweaked the ingredients a tiny bit, but overall, not much difference between Walmart beans and the name brand beans, made on the same production line. Story 17. I work for a popular theme park that provides transportation. Our vehicles are 247 ready to start, keys in the ignition. If anyone wanted to walk onto one of our vehicles and steal it and drive away, they could, and it would take a few minutes before anyone would even realize it. Story 18. I'll stress long since ex-employee first. At Home Depot, and I suspect any other similar stores, if the website says there are 2 or less of something in stock, there are exactly 0 in stock. It means someone miscounted inventory. Also, if you are browsing in Home Depot and more than one employee approaches and offers to help you find something, they think you are planning to shoplift. Story 19. Did you ever wonder what happened to the unsold hamburgers at Wendy's? There's always a few patties on the grill ready to be sold the moment a customer walks in. What happens when they get done and nobody comes in to buy them? They go right into a refrigerator and they become tomorrow's chili. Answer: slight correction, but they go in the freezer, not the refrigerator. And if they don't have enough chili meat at the end of the night, usually several pounds, they'll literally just grill up as many extra burgers as they need after closing and throw those in with the older patties. Also, if there is still frosty mix in the machine at the end of the night, it gets drained into a literal bucket, put in the cooler, and put back into the machine tomorrow before they'll open up a new bag of mix. Story 20. When I worked at Ross 15 years ago, they would only schedule each staff member for 12 hours per week so that they could call people in for one unscheduled shift week, and they did every single week, without anyone passing the 20-hour threshold where they'd be entitled to benefits. So instead of having full-time employees at a store that was open 9 a.m., 11 p.m., 7 days a week, they just had like 80 part-time employees who each had to work second jobs, also no benefits, to get by, all so that Ross didn't have to give anyone sick leave. They made me watch an anti-union video and sign a no-union pledge when I was hired, and they had anti-union posters up in the break room. I quit as soon as I found another job, ghosted them on my last shift, and have never stepped foot in that store again. Unionize your workplace. Avoid patronizing anti-union businesses whenever possible. Answer: oh my gosh, I worked at Ross earlier this year, and they had me watch the anti-union video too. I couldn't believe it, lol. And not to sound like a Karen, but I could not believe how chaotic and unprofessional management was. Getting my interview and training dates was hell. They kept ghosting me and saying different dates. The only manager present on my training day just left for the day, halfway through without telling me, and apparently didn't tell anyone what to do with me. So whenever there was a malfunction, there were a lot, I had to go up to random cashiers and ask them what to do. Then one of them comes in at one point and asks when I was supposed to clock out. Turns out it was like 15 minutes ago. He hurriedly shut down the PC and told me that I could finish training another day. My next scheduled day, I show up, and the manager, who wasn't there, had scheduled me as the closing cashier. I had never been on the floor before. I had to tell them that I hadn't finished my training videos yet, which left the other employees to fill in for me while I rushed through training. And don't even get me started on how many digital contracts they had me read and sign. It was insane, especially since it was all common sense. So were 75 of the training videos. I had an emergency and had to go out of state for an unknown amount of time, which meant that I had to quit. I know, terrible. I felt really bad, but it was a matter of my safety, and they never gave me my last paycheck. Come to find out, Ross is known for having terrible management. I have enjoyed all of my other bonds and am generally well-liked and considered capable, so I don't think I was the problem. I really wouldn't suggest anyone work there. Employees don't even get a good discount, lol. If watching an anti-union video as part of your training isn't a giant red flag, I don't know what is. This is exactly why workers need to talk openly about organizing. Companies would rather have 80 part-timers with no benefits than one full-timer with health care. Ghosting them on the last shift? Honestly, deserved. Story 21. Paint is marked up by a lot. Contractors pay lower depending on how much they buy. They could be getting 20 a gallon. Regular Joe pays 80. Answer: all building materials are this way. Contractors make a good bit of money just on reselling materials. In my trade, it's about 33 of revenue, with labor being the rest. The partnership between distributors and contractors is very important. So distributors give contractors a better price to make sure the contractor has room to do their markup without looking bad. It's not just a scam, though. The contractor does incur a lot of costs just from handling the material. Cost of ownership, storage and insurance, cost of transport, large trucks and gas, and of course, cost of labor to load and unload material. Story 22. I don't think it's a secret, really, but IKEA has some interesting psychology and is set up specifically to keep you facing products with every turn. The one-way design through the storeroom floor does have exits, but forces you to think you could be missing out. You can't see around corners, so there's a sense of mystery, and you want to see what's next. At every turn of the path, you're facing yet another display. There's also their IKEA effect, where the act of assembling the item causes the shopper to feel a sense of ownership and a higher perceived value of the item. I worked at IKEA when I was younger and learned some of this. Answer. Oh yeah, I worked a few summers at IKEA when I was a student and was very impressed, though slightly disturbed by the absolute amount of planning, thought, and psychology that goes into the whole operation. In general, it's a good place to work by the standards of my country, especially for students. For them, it's basically IKEA or some shoot jerk warehouse W crackheads, don't ask. Good pay, good benefits, coworkers are chill and human, pretty responsible on both the physical and work environment. But goddamn, is it designed to siphon money from the customer at every turn with psychological tricks. Not just the ones you mentioned, but more. It's purposely self-contained to make it a destination and going there an event so you're prepared ahead of time to spend big. Also, they have a creepy kind of cult of personality around the founder, the IK in IKEA, who was, at best, a stingy bastard, and at worst, a two-faced tax evader. Did they also tell you everything sold there falls into one or more of 4 styles? Story 23. Not necessarily a secret, but hotel clerks are usually empowered to offer reduced room rates if the room would otherwise sit empty. If it's the off-season, they'll probably give you a room for like 25 off. It's worth asking. As a bonus, I'll also dispel a rumor of a secret which is not actually real. There is no Starbucks secret menu in the sense of there being beverages that aren't listed anywhere by Starbucks. There's no logical point in having one to begin with. There are recipe cards in every store for every single menu item and none for anything that is not on the menu. If you know the ingredients and quantities, they will make anything you want. And if you want to call it a Twix Frappuccino or whatever, you can. But they won't know how to make it without you telling them. The company kind of embraced the idea of a secret menu, but it's not a secret because it's on their website, LOL. The only exception is the undertow. That's not on the menu, but good baristas know how to make it. I am not absolutely sure why it's not on the menu, but I've heard it's because it doesn't have a consistent temperature throughout. It's 2 pumps of vanilla, a splash of cream, and then 2 shots on top, pulled over a spoon so they don't mix with the cream. You drink it quickly like a shot, and it's cool on the bottom and hot on top. It's really, really good. I used to start every shift with one. So the secret menu isn't really a secret, but asking nicely at a hotel front desk absolutely is a power move. Next time I'm traveling, I'm just going to whisper, I see you have many empty rooms. What can we do? With intense eye contact. But seriously, calling direct booking online. Those OTA fees are brutal. Answer, yup to the hotel part. I used to work in reservations. If we had a lot of rooms that were empty, we were allowed to discount down to the cost to basically clean the room. Call the hotel directly. Online travel agencies, Expedia, Hotel Tonight, etc., take a massive cut at Chinon, up to 50, and the hotels would rather give that discount to you. Also, it doesn't hurt to ask for things like waived resort fee or a parking fee. I would almost always say yes. Story 24. At Walmart, if frozen food items or dairy products don't get refrigerated right, they still stock and sell them. Answer, all of the official training tells you different, but in practice, they will break cold chain pretty regularly. For example, if a cold or frozen item is found discarded on the sales floor, it is supposed to be automatically processed as a claim and discarded. In practice, they will judge how cold it still feels and put it back. I witnessed this many times. This happens on a much larger scale when the power goes out, which happens way too frequently. Story 25. I used to work in the meat and seafood department of a Winn-Dixie in Florida. Despite the massive coastline of our state, not one single seafood item was from Florida. We were getting clams from Uganda. Story 26. Hotels, be nice. Seriously, be kind, and the person behind the desk will bend over backwards for you. Also, unethical pro tip, but but if you're going to be 1 or 2 nights in a city and want to save, call beforehand and tell them you're in town for a funeral. Bereavement rates are anywhere from 30-50 off. Bed Bath, beyond Nordstrom's, they will literally take back anything that looks like they sold it before. Now, you can't return a Hamilton Beach blender or Wrangler jeans, but if you have a luxury expensive brand item, you can return it for store credit. Story 27. If you're nice, polite, and patient, you get more money or trade in credit than a regular customer. If you are a jerk, know-it-all, jerk, demanding, a liar, you're going to get offered considerably less, and I don't care if I get your items or not. And most of the time, hope you say no, so I don't have to have you in my store for the extra 5 minutes to complete the transaction. Answer: interesting. My buddy does kitchen and bathroom designs, and he has leeway in what he charges. One pain in the jerk lady kept wanting changes each time she came in to see the plans. When she finally approved, he priced them really high because he didn't want her business. But she agreed to the design and pricing, so it made up for his time revising over and over. I know he would get pissed when he designed a kitchen with pricing, and they would take it home to think about it. Then off to Lowe's or Home Depot with the design work done for them. Story 28. Fresh meat is usually a big yikes. Unless your store has a processing plant in the back room, that food has been frozen, defrosted, refrozen, defrosted, and then usually you go home and refreeze it. Frozen meat is usually more ideal. While the temps aren't always consistent, it's dealt with the defrosting less. Also, the seasoned meat at the butcher counter, it's as close to expirations as possible. They season it to hide the discoloration. Answer: this is absolutely false and bad information. I was a butcher in a grocery store for several years. Beef, pork, and chicken comes in fresh. It's vacuum sealed and is perfectly good for up to about a month until it is opened up and oxygen hits it. In all my years, I never seen meat refrozen, and I've worked at several other stores too. The meat in the glass case is usually choice or prime, a higher grade than the stuff out on the shelf. Meat goes in the glass case first, and the next day it gets rotated out and packaged for the shelf. Beef has a shelf life of 4 days, so 3 days is put on the package once it leaves the case. The hamburger is fresh in the glass case every day. The temps are always consistent as long as the employees keep the doors closed. If a meat case does lose refrigeration, then that meat is immediately pulled and put in the back where the fresh meat is stored, or if it's frozen meat like seafood, then it goes in the freezer. The only meat that comes in frozen is awful stuff like chitlins and liver, and 90% of seafood is frozen too. Some seafood counters get fresh fish like salmon, catfish, or tuna occasionally, if in a landlocked state. It's okay to freeze the fresh fish, but it's a huge no-no to thaw it back out. And I never seen anyone do that. Some frozen stuff, like shrimp in the seafood glass case, was previously frozen, and all the tags for each item in the case has to display if it's been previously frozen or fresh. I love when the comments turn into a professional debate. One person's fresh meat is a yikes versus an actual butcher's detailed breakdown of vacuum sealing and case rotation. This is why I come to the comments, to witness the clash of insider knowledge. I'm siding with the butcher on this one, but I'm still side-eyeing that pre-seasoned stuff. Story 29. Just because you see someone wiping off the tables doesn't mean they're clean. That bucket of bleach water has had the wash rag dunked in it lots of times, and the bleach is mostly evaporated. Therefore, they're scattering germs from one table to the next. Same with the rag they're using to wipe off the trays. Just because your table is dry and no crumbs, don't mean shoot. We rarely wipe the seats down. You just sat where someone who doesn't shower regularly sat, and that's a very large portion of people who eat fast food. You gotta remember, it's mostly teen kids working there. The absolute nastiest kitchen I've ever seen is in a certain famous chicken joint. I question the very air I was breathing back there. The pressure cookers are the reason people don't get sick or worse. The employees only ate potato wedges, biscuits, and sides. I was there and I saw. The showers at a truck stop chain I worked at are horrendous. You walk in and see a clean and dry shower. The trucker before you took care of all his business in the shower. They only have a limited time to take a shower, or they have to pay double. We have to hurry up and clean the shower for the next trucker. Poop in the shower and all. And suddenly, every fast food table and truck stop shower feels like a biohazard site. This isn't a secret. It's a public service announcement wrapped in a horror story. Note to self, always carry sanitizing wipes. And maybe never, ever wear shorts in a booth again. Answer, as a server, the table rag thing pissed me off. I'd come in for swing shift and have to empty clean bits of food out of a filthy bucket that contained a visibly dirtier handy wipe that obviously hadn't been changed since the early AM. It disgusted me to think about these lazy assholes cleaning tables with cold, filthy water and what I would consider to be an embarrassingly dirty rag. You get what you pay for. Thankfully, since 2020, they've had to put locks on those doors because they're not all open 24 hours anymore. Story 30. A lot of the time, prices can be haggled in my company. If there is any cosmetic or structural damage to an item, any cashier can reduce the price, and it's often negotiable if they're feeling nice. Story 31. Work at a big discount retailer. The clearance aisles are always like that because they want you to spend more time browsing. Story 32. Years ago, you used to be able to search online for hidden promo codes for hotels. I found one, and it was for the largest investment company that owns a bunch of hotels, and the website were employee codes for upper management at this company, like a perk. For example, we would stay at a Hilton beachfront and only pay $75 a night for a room that was $500. We did this for years. If I was ever questioned, I'd show them my company ID and say we are a contractor for the company and was given this code to use. I was able to get away with it for about 5-6 years, and those were the best vacation years of our family. Story 33. Great Value milk is the same as the name brand delivered to the store. There are only so many dairies in each region, and milk can only travel so far. The only difference is the sticker. Each container of milk has a dairy code on it that you can search online to confirm this. Story 34. I work for a large consumer goods company. We must sell our products to all retailers at the same time by law, and it is up to them to decide what to sell it to customers for. For example, we sell the same product to Walmart and Loblaws for the same price, and Walmart sells it for $8 and Loblaws sells it for $11. It doesn't matter what the volume is. Story 35. All our freshly made bread comes from a frozen box or dry bag. I've had regulars comment about the quality of the bread, claiming they know which employee made it that day. Lol, you absolutely do not. Story 36. We can't do anything if you're stealing. We can't even accuse you. We can only call the police, and most workers will be darn if they go court for the soulless corporate lizards who run our store. Besides, by the time the cops would arrive, you'd be home in bed for the night. Answer. Also, I am much less likely to notice you stealing if you don't run. I had a guy sprint out of the front door and was immediately like, well, that guy just shoplifted, despite not seeing anything in his hands. Cameras got checked and he'd stolen 5 big dairy milk chocolate bars. If he just walked out, I wouldn't have noticed, and chocolate doesn't get security tagged. Story 37. Former clothing retail here customers' returns can be sold to employees at heavy markdowns, even if the customer never worn them. We find small imperfections and use that judgment. You can get a return item for $80 to $95 off. I own several expensive shoes that cost $30 each. In the sales section, we usually get a generous discount, around $50 off the mark price. But there are times when we get a special discount of $75 off. This is where all my Christmas gifts would come from. Story 38. We leave notes in our system under your name, so other stores will know about your bad behavior. If there's a pause and it looks like someone is reading something when you give your name, that would be your clue. Story 39. Many large chains that deal directly with the public have a manual, or section thereof, given to managers that outlines the policies of how customers are treated or upsold. The latter can be particularly disturbing to read because a lot of dishonesty is behind it. Story 40. Ex-cruise ship worker here. We had our own bar where we paid basically nothing for adult beverage. It was awesome. I was once the most hungover I've ever been when I got called for random substances testing. And I was like, just to be upfront, if you guys test for adult beverage, I'm not going to pass. And the lady was like, we don't, trust me, no one else would either. Story 41. I know this isn't the same at every bank, but at least with mine, we are here to help you. We are not trying to scam you, cheat you, steal your money, whatever other thing people claim. When we ask about why you need over $10K in cash, or are bringing us over $10K in cash, we do that because the government requires it, and we are trying to help keep an eye out for money laundering. Meaning if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to worry about. If you're getting it to pay a flock of strippers, cool. If you're getting it to pay for a car, cool. If you're bringing it because you're the stripper who got a shitload of money from the rich client, cool. We don't care. I know this isn't much of a secret, but people act like this is completely secret information that nobody's supposed to know. Also, the bank says we need to charge fees for stuff. If you're nice and ask politely if the manager can approve waiving a fee for something, we frequently will just for good customer service. I'm supposed to charge 5 for a non-customer to cash a check over 200. We only cash on us checks for non-customers. No risk on those, since we can tell immediately if there is a stop pay or not enough money in the account, unless it's payroll. So if I'm getting a non-customer, I ask if it's payroll and try to lead them to saying it is. I'd rather not charge that fee, partially because I'm lazy and partially because I feel it's wrong to do it. It's almost heartwarming to hear a bank employee say, "We really don't care what you do with your cash. Just be cool about it." The real secret here, politeness is literally a currency. That fee you're about to get charged might just disappear if you're not acting like the bank personally robbed you. Story 42. Just say that the markdown or digital coupon didn't work and ask the cashier nicely to fix it, then make up a price cheaper than what it really was. Make it believable, not too low, and the cashier will gladly change the price to whatever you say. I just want you to pay and leave. Answer: we catch on, but don't care. At least that's what used to happen when I worked at Walmart. Old man used to come in and say, "This milk is 1 gallon across town," or something like that, like clockwork every weekend. We are technically supposed to search the local ads to find the price match and verify, but me and my coworkers never did that. If homie needs to discount his milk, I'm not going to make his life harder by being a jerk about it. Literally would just go, "Sure thing," and correct it to his price. I would only get angry when people were egregious or treating me like an idiot. Like, no, that high-tech electric razor with a security band on it is not 5. I don't need to work in that department to know that. Someone placed it somewhere they shouldn't, most likely another customer. That doesn't make that item that cost. Story 43. Black Friday items, mostly consumer electronics, have their own SKU and typically are refurbished items with different shittier warranties. Also, a lot of retailers carry the exact same item but have SKU variations so that each retailer can have sales without worrying about price matching. A lot of items are the same thing in a different box every year with a different SKU to avoid market saturation and knockoffs. When it comes to any matter of anything requiring expertise, the customer is rarely right, and the work performed by a lot of novice or amateurs will end up costing you more than the professional in the long run, especially involving electronics or mechanical devices. Plus, amateur work doesn't come with a warranty, so the guy that did it on the weekend for a 6-pack of beer is going to want a case to fix their fudge up. Tariffs are real and driving up the cost of everything you buy, and companies are passing the cost directly to the consumer. Sales happen, but it's a shell game with other products. You're going to save 0.03 on the sale item, but something else in your cart is 0.04 more expensive than usual. The more stuff in your cart, the higher probability that you'll break even. Black Friday, the national holiday of "this seems too good to be true," because it is. Different SKUs, refurbished items, warranties that vanish into thin air. It's all a beautifully orchestrated illusion of saving money. Remember, if a deal looks insane, it's probably because the product is in some way insane. Story 44. Where I work, all the curbside pickup orders are handled by Instacart. If you buy normal groceries, though, the items are all stored in a staging area with shelves for dry goods, a refrigerator, and a freezer. If a customer buys any deli items like sandwiches or rotisserie chicken, the Instacart shopper doesn't stage it. We grab it from the deli, scan it with a provided phone, and pay for it with a company card. When the customer signals in the app, they're ready for pickup. We have people who have just used the Instacart app to buy their lunch instead of the regular store app. If they'd used the latter, they could have paid the store directly, grabbed their items themselves, and left. Story 45. The jet-puffed marshmallows and the cheaper store-brand marshmallows are made at the same factory on the same machine with the same ingredients. The only thing that is different is the printing on the bag and the price. Story 46. Don't work out at commercial gyms if you can afford not to, and if you have to, wash your hands and shower. Story 47. Partly the reason why I quit the job, a certain retail clothing store forces the customer-facing employees to sign people up for a certain amount of credit cards within a given time frame. When I was there, it was a month. When I left, it became a week, or they are let go. The credit cards are bogus too. Can only use it with that retailer, and the last time I saw the card, it was close to 40 APR. They also wanted to get employees to contact people to get them back into the stores during sales events off of the info from their store card. We had to ask for permission for that. It's still wild that they wanted us to spam text our customers because the corporation wants more money. Also, when I was at a coffee chain, we had to get customers in and out of the drive-thru at an average of 50 seconds or be subject to performance reviews, aka 3 strikes, you're out rule. Story 48. The famous iced tea at McAllister's isn't a special blend. It's made with giant Lipton tea bags and about a pound of sugar. Story 49. Sometimes I genuinely don't know the answer to your question, and me redirecting you to customer service is the best thing I can do for you. It's not a plot to get you out of my face because I'm too lazy to help. It's because I genuinely don't know how to get the bike off the top shelf because that isn't my department. Story 50. Former Domino's manager, cinnamon twists, parm bites, garlic twists, and pan pizzas all use the same dough. Also, the tracker is just a bunch of lights on a timer. This timer starts when the people at prep stations check off the first item on your order. All of the other steps on the tracker are arbitrarily timed, except for the drivers on their way one. And when it says Mark is working on your order, the truth is any employee capable of making a pizza is working on it. The system has no way of knowing who's handling your food until it gets to the delivery phase. Finally, for the most part, drivers don't care about a tip based on the price of the order. Like a few dollars to cover gas is fine. They care more when your order is a pain in the jerk, super big orders, or delivering to places that are hard to navigate to, or at the edge of the delivery area, or if instructions are weird. Basically, if they have to drive more than 5 minutes or deliver more than like 3 pizzas with sides and stuff, that's when they'd expect a bigger tip. Story 51. Costco puts their rotisserie chickens in the back of the store, so you have to walk through the store to get one, and it makes you buy more stuff along the way. Story 52. Costco does not treat their employees as well as they present. They always talk about the great pay rates, but the rate of pay means nothing when you can't get the hours as most of the front end is part-time. Story 53. We have a lot of loopholes that could save you money at the spa franchise I work at, but they're complicated to explain and implement, and we definitely don't advertise it because we'd lose money. For example, we have a membership. We also sell gift cards and members pay their member rate to purchase. But sometimes we have crazy promotions on those gift cards, so maybe you get a member B2G1 deal. We can, at least at my location, apply those gift cards to the membership. So if you were willing to purchase 4 of those gift card sets and do the labor of giving us your gift card for your upcoming member change, each month you'd have the whole year of membership prepaid and be able to get 4 of your 12 services for free each year. If you want the math, non-member rate X 12 months $1,560, 12 most membership $960, member using the B2G1 promos for 12 most $640. We also have the ability to extend expiration dates on promo, like the freebie gift cards. My location is pretty flexible with that, and if it's only expired by a little bit, we typically extend it without even mentioning it was expired. But if it's expired and really old, while we can change it, we typically don't unless we need a way to comp something that's less damaging to the spa. So that free service you got because your last one sucked or was canceled with short notice. We probably used an old expired gift card to cover it if you had one. Note, we do not use your purchased or active gift cards for this. Only the promo free ones that have already expired. But if you have a promo gift card that expired recently, or even a long time ago, it won't hurt to ask if it can be extended. Worst case, we'll say no. This heavily depends on the rules at the franchise you visit, but TBH, it also depends on whoever is at the front desk in that moment. We don't get paid shoot at the front desk. Most of us aren't going to be strict with these things unless we've been instructed to. And often enough, you'll get someone who is more keen to just give you this thing than potentially deal with you being a jerk if they refuse. I say this not to encourage you to use high-pressure tactics on underpaid staff, but because if you're really nice in how you ask, you are pretty likely to find people happy to hook you up in the ways they can. We like helping people, and we want you to come in and give us business. And we like when potentially stressful interactions are simple, pleasant, and easy to solve. If you make it easy for us, we want to make you happy. And at least at my location, I don't think anyone is paying much focus on how many promo GCs get unexpired. It's pretty low risk for us. Just don't be a male body part about it, because your free stuff is expired, and that's not our problem. It's just something we can solve for you if it makes sense for us to do so. This is the most beautifully chaotic spa hack I've ever read. It's like a math puzzle combined with a social experiment. If you buy 4 gift card sets during a B2G1 promo, then apply them monthly to your membership. My brain's short-circuited, but my wallet is intrigued. The real lesson? Being nice to the underpaid front desk person might unlock secret levels of discount. Story 54. Worked for the second largest big box fashion retail store. Most items made $1,000 profit. That's why you see things for sale for $5 that were $40. They're still making profit. Don't pay retail. Story 55. One thing most customers don't realize is that big chains often pretend to run out of certain items just to push alternatives with higher profit margins. For example, if a popular budget option is sold out, it's not always because demand was too high. It's sometimes because management wants you to buy the pricier version sitting right next to it. Employees usually know the cheaper stock is in the back, but we're told not to restock until the premium stuff moves. It's not malicious, just business strategy, but from the customer side, it feels like artificial scarcity. Answer: I work for a budget retailer in the UK, and this secret got me told off by a customer, lol. We ran out of carrier bags, we're a new location, and for some reason, we didn't get any delivered for weeks. A manager ended up going to our nearest location to get some. I'm a cashier and had to tell everyone who asked for a bag that I only had the larger reusable bags that could be up to 2 if they were branded Hello Kitty, Harry Potter, Friends, etc. Obviously, people weren't pleased, but this one guy decided I was actually upselling him a bag. He walked out asking his girlfriend if she'd seen what I'd done and that it was all a load of shoot. I didn't want to have the same conversation with customers and get complained at all day, I promise you. I would have sold him a cheap bag if I had any. My favorite was, but you made me buy a reusable bag yesterday. They're reusable. Bring it with you. Story 56. If you treat any of my coworkers like dirt, we make you pay one way or another. Don't be a male body part. Story 57. A lot of the big chain jewelry stores that do custom work get all the manufacturing and labor done in China. CADs, casting, setting, nearly the whole shebang. Conversely, repair work is completed in the States. Probably not a big surprise to anyone, to be honest. Story 58. Not true working in supermarkets. Polite people will just be shut down and accept the refusal, etc. Rude people will kick up a fuss and make a scene and be placated. Story 59. Dog daycare places don't walk the dogs half the time, to the point that it might permanently undo house training. Oh, also the no aggressive dogs and even no dogs over this weight rules don't apply if it's a repeat customer who pays a lot of money. Story 60. Car dealerships and the OEMs generally gouge the hell out of you for parts and service. I'm talking 200, 400 markup on parts alone. We as the manufacturer markup may of our parts upwards of 200 to the dealerships, who then turn around and do the same to you. Story 61. TJ Maxx loss prevention only exists to punish internal theft. You can steal whatever you want as a customer with absolutely zero repercussions. Employees are trained to do literally nothing if they see a customer stealing. But if you see a coworker stealing and report it, you receive $1,000 after they get fired. Story 62. I was a store MGR for a large home improvement store for 12 years. I knew in the first 15 seconds how much, if any, help you're going to get. If you were in jerk, then very little or none. If you're reasonable and nice, I'd bend over backwards for you. I remember my first boss telling me, you'll never remember 98 of your customers, but you'll remember the other 2. Story 63. If you place an order for pickup, it's batched with other orders for when we pick it. We don't necessarily get it right away, and we can't see which batch your order is in. Also, depending on the contents of your order, it's spread across 3 or 4 different types of batch. There's no way for us to expedite it or pick the batches your order is in. When we pick, it automatically assigns you the next one based on time. You can cancel it on your end if you need it sooner or it's running late, but there's nothing we can do until your order is picked and stowed, and there's still little we can do until it's picked up. Story 64. Made-in-house goods are usually frozen and reheated. This applies to hot food bars and bakeries. That cake that was just put out, the actual cake part was in the freezer for weeks, if not months, both at the warehouse and in the store, and the frosting comes from a big bucket. That Mac you love so much came from a bag. Story 65. When I worked in Tesco, if you double charge the customer and they leave the store, they get the product free. Story 66. Worked at Home Goods for 3 years. The company, and TJX in general, is obsessed with credit card sales. They don't care about anything else. Story 67. Bree does not care about the outdoors. They just care about credit card applications. I used to work there for a short time, and they track how often you convert a customer to a credit card, specifically in Rye Credit Card. Those that had more conversions got better shifts and more hours. Story 68. Worked for a big lingerie retailer and multiple other retail stores in my time. 99 of the clothes produced you can find on Shein or AliExpress for the price the company paid for it. Story 69. Secrets or hacks to these chain companies don't really help us if we don't know which chain you're referring to. If you do X, you can get Y for free. Don't buy C because they never clean B and you'll get sick. Thanks for the heads up, but where? Story 70. A colleague told me in a previous role, he was told the logo of their blue chip company was adapted from a photocopy of the boss's arse after an office party. Story 71. Not a big chain, but most optometrist offices mark up glasses, frames ridiculously high. There was a particular pair I remember that we got wholesale for $60 that we resold for $300. Unless you have a very specialized prescription, just go to an online retailer. Story 72. I do tech support over the phone. I would say about 90 of the field tech guys I talk to are full of shoot and lazy. They consistently lie when we ask about parts they have replaced and the amount of troubleshooting they have done. When I ask you a simple yes or no question and you go on a whole tangent, more than likely you are lying and I'm going to not want to help you as much anymore. Especially if the product is out of warranty, you're on your own. Story 73. At Gives their customer service reps $350 per call to make adjustments to anyone's account. No questions asked if within that limit. It's basically just up to their discretion. Story 74. Your vegetable sandy fruits come in boxes and bags. Literally just a cardboard box. No safety. Anything except stored 6 inches off the ground for flooding and rodents. Either in a fridge or not. If a box falls and stuff rolls out, scooped up, retuned a box, and out on the floor before you know it. Rinse before cooking. Story 75. I know it's been posted, but in retail, we absolutely can do whatever we want. Change prices, discount, give shoot away ECT. We're obviously not supposed to, but special cases, managers, GMs can do what you're swearing at us for. We just aren't. It's much easier to just say it's not possible than to explain your issue isn't a big enough problem for us to make an exception, or in most cases, you're being a huge male body part, so fudge you. Story 76. Some chains give their employees lots of discretion to do whatever it takes to keep the customer happy. Those customers will keep coming back. Others don't, so they lose customers. My wife and I rented cars on the same day from 2 different car rental companies. My car was a bit dirty. I told them this when I returned the car. They asked me what they can do to make amends, and I suggested a free rental day. They said no problem. My wife's car was also dirty. When she complained, they sent her to the manager. 15-minute wait. The manager said he had no power to do much except give her 5 off for the inconvenience. Company A empowers employees to keep people happy. Company B doesn't really care. Story 77. Using common sense first will net you a much nicer interaction with someone serving you. I work in a bottle shop, and the amount of people who walk all through the RTD section and then say, "Where's the beer?" before looking at the other half of the shop, or even the signs on the doors, makes me want to just kick you out. I think my funniest one was when I worked at a KFC. A lady asked me if we serve fish. Story 78. Training at Walmart says employees aren't allowed to stop people from just walking out if they decline to let you check their receipt. Story 79. As an ex-Walmart stalker, those end cap displays screaming, "Hot deal." Half the time it's just expired yogurt or seasonal junk we're desperate to offload before it haunts the back room forever. Insider hack. Check the app for rollback prices. Sometimes they're lower online, and we'll match them at the register if you ask nicely. Mum's the word, or I'll be demoted to greeter duty. Story 80. The graduation gowns, caps, half-tuxes, and drapes never get washed all season at the most popular studio portrait company for seniors. You're lucky if they get steamed. Please take a shower after getting your senior photos. Also, the nicer you were to us, the more photos you got. The meaner you or your parents were, the less you received. Story 81. I know how to read the pricing screen at PC Richard's son. The system shows exactly how low a price can go before a manager's approval is required, as well as how much commission the salesperson earns at each level. If I'm negotiating, I'll usually tell the salesperson that it'll tip them the difference in commission they'd lose if they get a manager to approve the lower price. That alone is often enough to make it happen. On large appliances, this can mean $1,400 in savings. On smaller items, usually $2,050. The pricing on their screen is coded using letters instead of numbers. The code comes from the phrase "don't give up," where D1, O2, N3, and so on. It's designed so customers can't easily tell what the true lowest price is if they glance at the screen. You'll usually see 3 rows of these coded prices on the lower left of the display, with a matching set to the right showing commission. The top number is the highest, full retail. The middle is the suggested deal price, low enough to make you feel like you won, but still safe for the salesperson's commission. The bottom is the lowest possible price before a manager's approval is required. If you don't get a manager code, you didn't get the best deal, you just got the minimum price the salesperson could offer without approval. And honestly, just showing that you understand the system is often enough to unlock a much better price. This is the kind of insider code breaking that makes me want to put on a heist movie soundtrack before negotiating for a fridge. Don't give up as a cipher? Brilliant. The real power move isn't even haggling. It's letting the salesperson know you understand the game. Knowledge is power, and in this case, power is a several $100 discount. Story 82. If you order something to be picked up right before a holiday, you can't make sure it's fresher by beating the system or being rude. We know that all 200 appetizer trays that have been ordered are going to be eaten on Christmas because everyone's pickup date is Christmas Eve or the day before. Sure, the ones being picked up earliest need to be done first because being late is bad, but if your tray for Christmas Eve is similar to one due the day before, they'll be done side by side because it's faster to make 2 identical trays at the same time. And even if all 200 trays are scheduled for pickup on Christmas Eve, that doesn't magically double our staff, so we have to make some of them early to ensure everything can actually get done. If you want it done to impossible standards, do it yourself. If you want it done for you by an underpaid stranger, then accept the reality that you are never the only person wanting the low-effort method, so compromises must be made. Story 83. Targets that offer food don't properly store anything in the back. You're already dealing with the rot window before you get home. Story 84. If you complain about another employee and it's something stupid or meaningless, I'll lie about telling management about it. As soon as you don't see me, I'm going to roll my eyes. It's pretty obvious who's never been in a customer-facing position or been a long time since they were an employee. Answer. We have a regular customer who makes most of the female employees uncomfortable and is very huggy, but seems to have a learning disability, so management won't do anything. He started complaining about the only non-white employee in the store, saying he always smirks at him and that he's rude. He told a supervisor this while I was on shift, and I watched the supervisor say he'll talk to him about it. Obviously, that never happened. Story 85. As a former Target employee, those buy one, get one 50 off deals? Yeah, that's basically the store's way of saying, we ordered way too many unicorn-shaped pool floats. Please take them before they multiply like gremlins. Pro tip, whip out the app and scan that barcode. It might whisper, psst, this bad boy's hitting rock bottom next week. Shh. If corporate finds out, they'll make me restock the clearance aisle in purgatory. Story 86. I am a custom framer at Michael's. Custom framing is expensive, but if you are trying to frame and match something that isn't a standard size, you will spend almost the same amount for a crappy frame than if you just went custom. For example, if you are framing something that is 14x17, by the time you find a frame close to the size and have a mat cut, you will have spent near $120 for something that doesn't look exactly like you want, and it's a cheap frame and glass. But if you went custom, you will get a nice frame, UV glass, matte, acid-free paper backing, preservation, and we guarantee our work for a price tag of roughly $150. In other words, you are getting your money's worth. If you care about the piece, just go custom. Story 87. My manager handled a call. Woman did not want to come in, but wanted to know all about the fabrics we had on clearance. Each one wanted to know the colors, how much we had, how much they costed, by phone. I still remember my manager putting down the phone and saying, I dislike customers. Answer, I work at a Michael's. We get so many calls like this. Our phone rings constantly. It's a scrappy Wi-Fi phone with a lag, and we can't hear the customer. 90 of the time, they could have checked online if we carry an item and then decide if it's worth their time to come in. Instead, they call and ask us to describe random things. Craft store customers are a special kind of sucky. Story 88. I worked for a small local restaurant chain. One location never had its gas turned on, and all food was reheated in a microwave or air fryer. Story 89. If you live in an apartment building where concierge doesn't hold packages for you, i.e., they dump them in the mailroom, vendors like Walmart and Best Buy will take your word for it if you say the package never arrived, especially if there is a sign telling the delivery drivers not to leave packages in the mailroom and send you a new one. Story 90. Cashiers have a lot of power to make things right for the right people and the right reasons. It's in our best interest to keep you happy, and we enjoy giving a good experience. Just be reasonable and friendly. We want you to have a memorable experience that brings you back, even if we're responding to a prior experience that wasn't great. Story 91. We don't care if you steal the 1-pound coffee bags at Starbucks. We are way too busy to care about anyone stealing coffee beans. Saved you $15. Story 92. Most restaurants will give you a free meal if you complain enough. Eating the cost of your food is often less of a hassle than dealing with a difficult customer. Story 93. Any cash you put in your safety deposit box is no longer insured. Even if there was a fire, robbery, etc. They treat it like you took it home and put it in your safe. If we ask you about credit cards, investments, etc., please don't get upset. It is literally our job. It's part of what they look at when they do our performance reviews. If we don't push enough products, we can be fired. A bank that I used to work at had a specific list of clients and businesses that were allowed to get away with like cashing checks before the date, not having to give specific ID, cash checks for their employees, allowed non-member employees to cash large checks without having to make sure that the business had enough cash. Another bank I worked for was a financial mainstay for the NX4DM cult. They originally were going to continue doing business with them because it brought it a shoot ton of money, but they finally decided in the end to close the accounts because they were afraid of the media finding out in the backlash. Story 94. No matter your problem, if you are nice to me, I will do what I can to help. But if you have any attitude problem at any point, you are getting zero effort from me, and it doesn't matter how loud you shout. I will actively go out my way to be more difficult at that point. And if you swear at me, we are done completely, and I will literally walk away. Being nice gets you a lot further. Story 95. Everything in the marketing and sensory experience is designed to make you make a mistake in judgment. So you will buy something you shouldn't buy and pay way more than it's worth even if you should. Story 96. Try to avoid self-checkouts if possible. Companies say they have them to lighten the load on employees. But in reality, if people use them too much, they cut our hours because they don't have to pay the machines. Actual people almost always get you dealt with faster and deal with transaction and payment problems better. Story 97. Do you like salads? Do you like lettuce on your sandwich or burger? You may not after this. You've been warned. Every restaurant I've worked at gets the same lettuce from the same Farms Warehouse provider. It comes in at room temperature or warm, never refrigerated or cold. Each plastic bag in the box contains about 4 to 6 giant leaves of lettuce because the lettuce is stored in a room temperature or warm warehouse. Instead of being refrigerated, the vast majority of salads, lettuce for sandwiches, and burger lettuce is unusable. What restaurants are serving to the customers are the bits and pieces and occasionally not quite rotten leaves and portions of lettuce that they can salvage from the rotted mess that most restaurants receive. They use food wash fluids to clean off the rotted funk and residue of the other wilted pieces of lettuce. Many restaurants in the world actually use fresh lettuce that is a whole head, which is cut apart and properly prepared. But if it's a fast food place or a fast casual dine-in restaurant, there's a good chance you're eating leftovers from a rotten, expired pile of nasty stuff that no one should eat. Story 98. I don't know if this works at other big stores, but at least where I worked, if an item was buy one, get one free or something similar, and you only need one of those items, you can return one item and get the other for the discounted price. Story 99. Lol, all of the responses are be nice, but that really shouldn't be a secret that customers aren't supposed to know. Story 100. I no longer work at Home Depot, but they can basically do whatever you want. Sorry, can't take that back without a receipt. Yes, TF, we can. Sorry, that product is clearly used. Can't take it back. We totally can. We're just told to tell customers no, but if they fight hard enough, then just do whatever makes them happy. I worked in customer service, and there is a way to bypass everything in the system. If you know what you are doing as the employee, you can even return items you didn't purchase from Home Depot. The system doesn't recognize it as not a Home Depot item. It's your job as the employee to do your research before taking back a product. It's wild, and I've never worked in another store that functioned that way. My first shift alone, a guy returned a door. He didn't have the receipt, but he had his Home Depot Pro account number. I used that. The system let me scan the door. I processed the return. 15 minutes later, my manager asked me why there was a door from Lowe's sitting in customer service. Apparently, we didn't carry that brand, but Lowe's did. This was 4 years ago, IDK, if it still functions that way, but I'm willing to bet it does. Story 101. That grocery store meat, chicken, beef, pork that's packaged and has some sort of spice rub on it, that stuff expired the day before and was repackaged as something new so we can sell it instead of throwing it out. Grocery store, bakery items like French bread, donuts, pies, come frozen and are baked in store, put in our packaging, and sold. Some stores will allow you to buy a loaf of frozen French bread, for example, to take home and bake yourself. Also, as a customer, if you are rude, you will more than likely be ignored or helped very little. Polite, help to the max. Story 102. The snack bar at Costco is actually free. We don't know why you all give money to those little kiosks first. We didn't put those there, and we don't know who did. That's the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're interested, I have a second channel. This is Vancher signing off. See you soon.